Personality of the Year award, sponsored by Eimear, is an award that recognises inspiration, determination and/or resilience. This person will have inspired beyond the sporting arena, achieved in spite of the odds, and wow, is this year's shortlist incredible. We have multiple moms who are just unstoppable, an iconic lift that made waves around the world, a woman who ran her 1,000th marathon when she ran Dublin Marathon in October, and shining lights who inspire us to dream bigger. We have with us tonight a Cork Camogie legend, someone you might know from Ireland's Fittest Family, and a new Eimear ambassador, Anna Geary, to present the award. Among an incredible field, this athlete, who is incredible on the field, whether it's camogie, Gaelic football or rugby, the winner of this award goes to a brilliant athlete and role model who demonstrates ambition, resilience and integrity. Admitting she didn't know that women's rugby existed, to getting a crash course on Irish Camp about the rules, to become an integral part of the Irish setup and natural leader. Faced with the challenge of injury, followed by the excitement of welcoming a new baby boy, returning to club rugby, then faced with another bad injury, working her way back to the pitch and then to the Irish team and having a cracker of a year. A very deserving winner of the Her Sport Personality of the Year award, sponsored by Eimear, goes to none other than Eimear Considine.
Gorgeous more lad, Rotha sin.
Oh my God, I'm cray. Actually, near cred me go gavug me an gradam show. Bhí me just like winter na bhí me sí ag fécinn turna man á do crete. Agus sásta bheith an show nocht.
Well, gorgeous lad. Had you any idea it was well kept secret? No idea that this was going to be
No
presented
idea.
tonight?
I was sitting there in my bag on top of me and I was saying, Jesus, thank God. I haven't practiced any Irish and Cúil me Roisin ag labhairt and I was like, oh Jesus.
Well, she passed the test really well. You did a great job.
No, I killed them.
Well, they can keep a secret, that's for something. I mean, when you hear all the things that have been said about you, and like, what does that do to you, or how does that make you feel?
Well, I suppose I'm shortlisted with amazing women, and I'm not the only person that had a baby here tonight, but I looked at those other women across the board that are here, but it just, I suppose, proves the point that you can come back to sport after having a baby. And that was, I suppose, my main aim was to prove that my sporting career wasn't over as a result of having Caelan. And it was difficult, and I was chatting to Anna before this about, since I met her last, she has a baby boy as well, and how I wouldn't have done it without the people around me. So as much as people saw me come back on the pitch, a lot of people didn't see the behind the scenes work, and it wasn't just me, it was the organising of who's going to mind, who's going to pick up, how we're going to manage training. I remember early days, I was still feeding Caelan and I had Ailish in the back of the car going down to Limerick with me to UL Bowes training so that I could feed him before training, go training and then feed him immediately after training. So it's those kind of commitments that people don't see behind the scenes, and I wouldn't have come back on the field. And even the year that we had, like, the Irish women's rugby team got nominated for an award as well, and it was just amazing to be part of such an amazing squad that are going places in such a brilliant year with the World Cup so close to home in August and September. To be back on the pitch for me was was amazing not to talk about being back in with Ireland, playing for Ireland, and then getting to go over to Canada and have such a great experience with the girls over there as well.
With that in mind then, and with what's coming down the track, how difficult a decision was it for you to retire from rugby?
It was so hard. There were so many different factors involved in retiring. We had moved our life from Dublin to Clare. I had, I suppose, given up the dream of playing for Ireland, the fact that it was so much easier to be in Dublin or in the HPC to train. Obviously I have a nearly 2-year-old, he's 2 on Monday. Full-time job, a new job, and I suppose life gets in the way in that we have a mortgage, and the reality of it is a woman in sport, I couldn't afford to give up my career when you have, I suppose, other life commitments at home, and it's going phenomenal ways, women's rugby and women's sport in general, but it still has so far to go to be equal with its male counterparts, and it's getting there, but I suppose it's a slow journey, and there's so many supports, there's so many broadcasters, media, Her Sport are doing amazing things for it, but it still has a long way to go. So it wasn't just one thing that allowed me to make that decision, and it was really difficult. But also there's a generation gap between me and some of the younger girls. Like when we were in Canada, like they were just doing TikToks all the time, and I'm like, I'm too old for this. And it was amazing and everything, but I was able to switch off for those few weeks that I was away with the girls. But my reality is that I've got a little baby at home who missed me loads, and I missed him. And when I thought about the World Cup and how much it would entail and how much selfishness it would entail, I thought about him and I thought about my family, and I made the decision quite easy.
I'm going to come back to that later on, but I want to go back to when you started rugby, because you came obviously from a huge GA background, played football, played camogie for your club and for Clare. When you got involved in rugby, first of all, tell us how that happened and what was your initial impression of it?
I got involved through just being scouted at a time where they were looking for women's rugby players with the sevens, and a lot of rugby players have started off playing sevens. And I wasn't very good at the start. It was really difficult. I was really bad. And I suppose I thought about quitting so many times, but with good sports around me, like Mum told me to keep going, and Dean was like, I should give it a go, keep trying it. And I kept with it. I played sevens for a couple of years, and then I got brought into the 15 squad. And again, you're starting off learning a whole different game because it's completely different to the sevens game. So yeah, it was really challenging, and then I ended up playing with Munster and playing with UL Bows, and it brought me places I never imagined it would bring me, especially with the sevens. You get to travel around and you're all over the world travelling, and even with the Six Nations, getting to, I suppose, play in such an esteemed competition. It's the thing, you grow up watching Six Nations games, and that was my experience of rugby, but it was on the men's side of things. I had never seen a women's game of rugby until the Irish women won that Grand Slam, and it was the first time it was broadcast, and it was the first time I saw it being played, but I actually hadn't played rugby at that stage. And I remember looking at the screen, and it was in Italy, horribly muddy conditions. I think they had hypothermia, some of the girls, after it. It was so cold, and I thought to myself, I'd never play that game. And thankfully, it's got a little bit nicer now. We play a lot of our games on Astro Pitch, and the facilities have got better and the training has got better. But I actually remember saying to myself, geez, I'd never play rugby. But here I am, and it's worked out very well for me, and it's been an amazing career. And look, I couldn't have asked for, I suppose, a better way to end with an award like this.
Just that 10 years that you were playing, just take out TikTok for a minute, but what else have you noticed as the big changes in terms of women's rugby?
So even from taking a break for 2 years out of the game between my knee injury and having Caelan, the way that it has advanced in professionalism, if it increases in the professionalism every 2 years, at the rate it has improved, between coaching, facilities, getting to train in the high performance centre, having under 20s teams, having the Celtic Cup Challenge, which is happening at the moment, having, I suppose, the provinces as strong as they are, and the way that they're trying to grow the structures of the provinces in the women's game, it's changed dramatically from, I suppose, we used to train below in Fermoy in Cork when I started with Munster, and now we train in the HPC in the same place that the men get to train, and similarly with Ireland, we get to train in the same facilities. So I suppose it's just leaps and bounds further from when I started off playing rugby with coaching and standards, but also you've girls like Raven and Aaron up there that have started playing rugby when they were, able to pick up a rugby ball, and that's the benefit of it, is that they're starting rugby at such a young age that by the time they come into a senior squad, their skills are phenomenal. Whereas when I started, I'm learning everything at 23, and you can't have the game understanding that girls like them have because they start at such a young age. So the players are better. On top of everything else, the players are also better.
That 2-year break that you took, you had Caelan, and then you had a really bad injury. Was it in the back of your mind that I want to play for Ireland again? How much of a drive was that for you to put on the Irish jersey once more?
Yeah, I came back from Caelan with UL Bows and played with Munster, and then against Leinster I did my ACL, and then I just said, that's it. That's my rugby career over. And I had planned to come back. Like, I was aiming for Six Nations and aiming to get back on in that first season. And then the ACL happened, and I just thought, I'm not going to get back. I'm 32. Everything is against me. All the odds are against me. And then as my ACL rehab was happening, it just seemed a little bit more possible that I could maybe make the Interpro game or maybe make the first game of Interpros. And then it kept closer. I think I aimed at the first game actually, and then it was like I might work the first game. Got near the first game, the fullback that was due to start broke her nose and I was in. And then on the Tuesday before the game, I tore my hamstring. So then I was like, oh look, it'll never happen. The next game, I missed with my hamstring and then finally got back in for the final game. Got about 20 minutes and then I got the call from Scott, the head coach of Ireland. And before that, myself and Dean had sat down in a cafe and we were planning annual leave and using my parental leave and where we're going to go on holidays. And I said, will you just hold off on booking anything? Ireland are playing Australia on the 12th of, I don't know what date it was, in August, the week after the Interpros. I said, just hold off on that. And I suppose when you I didn't really want to say it out loud, but I had an aim of making that international game, even though I never, I didn't really think it was possible, but I had it in my head. So I suppose we held off on booking anything because even if there was a small chance that I could get back and play for Ireland, that was the game that I wanted to aim for. And I suppose sometimes when you have a goal in your head or a plan in your head, even if you don't say it out loud, you kind of aim towards it. And I never, like when Scott rang my phone, I couldn't believe that he was ringing me to call me back into Irish camp. And there was no guarantee I was going to play that game against Australia too. And that's what I kept saying was, look, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be in camp. Even if I don't make that Australia squad, I've proved a point that I can be back in with the best and compete with the best after having Kayla on. And that was, I suppose, goal number one for me, to prove to myself and to prove to other women that you can come back and be at that standard to play any sport after having a baby.
Played that game, which was a really special game. You won very convincingly against Australia and you scored a try. So that was a phenomenal success story for you, Eimear, to come back for someone that was going, well, we'll see.
And leave it to the rest of the girls to go through the Six Nations and the World Cup, which is such an exciting year for them.
Before I let you go, what will you miss?
I'll miss the girls. I'll miss the changing rooms and the bus journeys and the dressing room celebration after we beat the Black Ferns was, well, actually, myself and Grainne Maloney were pulled out for drugs testing afterwards. And when we came back in, everyone was just blaring Zombie. And it was just the scenes in the dressing room afterwards were just something that I'll never forget. And it's that stuff that brings you closer. It's the sing-songs in the bus. It's the sing-songs in the changing rooms, the friendships you make over the years. And that is the thing I'll miss the most. It's not the rugby on the field. It's everything else off it.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly miss watching you. Again, Ursula, Bullabus Moore, Martian, the Eimear Considine.